Your grandpa's shiny 50 Chevy wasn't a car. One crash and the dashboard, steering wheel, and glass all turned into weapons pointed straight at you. In the 1950s, cars were basically rolling sculptures. Big fins, shiny chrome, roaring V8s, but safety? Forget about it. These machines were built on rigid body-on-frame construction, which looked tough but worked against you in a crash. If you hit something, the car stopped instantly and every ounce of that force went straight into your body. Seat belts were barely a thing, and Nash offered optional lap belts back in 1949. Hardly anyone wanted them. Drivers actually thought buckling up was restrictive or a sign you didn't trust your driving skills. Imagine that logic. Better to fly through the windshield than wrinkle your shirt? Speaking of windshields, laminated safety glass had been around since the 1920s, but tempered glass was still used in the side windows, so when crashes happen, you still had plenty of razor-sharp shards flying around. Add in metal dashboards, hard knobs, and non-collapsible steering columns, and you basically had a cockpit full of weapons waiting for a collision. Forget airbags. The very first patent was filed in 1952 by John Hetrick, but it sat in the vaults for decades. Here's the hard stat. In 1955, the U.S. had a motor vehicle death rate of about 6 per 100 million miles driven. Compare that to just 1.3 in 2020. Automakers thought adding seatbelts or padded dashboards would scare buyers into thinking cars were dangerous, so the ads stuck to horsepower, style, and comfort. Safety was treated like a weakness, not a selling point. Believe it or not, crash testing didn't start with fancy labs or high-speed cameras. Back in the 1930s, General Motors was already messing around with crash tests at the Milford Proving Grounds in Michigan. They'd roll cars down hills or slam them into barriers just to see what broke first. And sometimes there was an actual driver behind the wheel who had to jump out right before impact. By the 1940s, things got a bit more structured. GM and a few others started running controlled barrier crashes, slamming cars headfirst into solid objects to see what would happen. Then came a turning point. 1955, Cornell Aeronautical Laboratory. They pioneered the first proper crash test with instrumentation. They strapped in test dummies and wired up sensors. For the first time, we had numbers to find the forces on the human body. We weren't just guessing what killed people anymore. And just a few years later, Volvo changed the game in 1959. They didn't just invent the three-point seatbelt, they also began investing in structured safety testing. Now, about those dummies, the very first one was Sierra Sam in 1949. A crude mannequin built for testing aircraft ejection seats, later repurposed for cars. But before dummies got good, researchers sometimes used cadavers or even animals. It was gruesome, but it taught engineers exactly how bodies break in a crash. By the 1970s, we finally had the hybrid 2 and 3 crash dummies. Of course, the auto industry wasn't exactly on board. They resisted, dragged their feet, and argued that crash testing was too expensive and unnecessary. Then came the bombshell. Ralph Nader's 1965 book, Unsafe at Any Speed. It blew the lid off the industry, exposing the true safety risks of cars. The government had no choice but to step in. Enter the U.S. National Traffic and Motor Vehicle Safety Act of 1966, which laid down the first federally mandated safety standards. From that point, automakers could no longer hide behind chrome and marketing. Safety became a legal requirement. And just so you know how primitive things were back then, the early crash tests only looked at 32 to 48 kilometers per hour frontal impacts. Today we think 48 kilometers per hour is city speed, but back then it was enough to kill, and the tests proved it. By the late 1970s, people were finally waking up to the brutal truth. Cars weren't safe just because they had headlights and a horn. Something had to change, and in 1978 and 79, the U.S. National Highway Traffic Safety Administration dropped the bombshell, a new car assessment program, or NCAP. For the first time, consumers could now see in plain numbers with stars which cars protected families and which ones turned into coffins at impact. And it didn't stop in America. By 1993, Australia rolled out ANCAP, putting its own cars through the ringer. 4 years later, Europe fired back with Euro NCAP, and that one changed the game. Over time, NCAP pushed harder, adding side impact test in 1979, rollover resistance, and even pedestrian protection in the 2000s. Cars weren't just tested for passengers anymore. They had to prove they wouldn't mow down everyone else. Tests themselves got meaner too. Earlier crash tests were tame, but NCAP started pushing cars into higher speed frontal crashes, offset barriers that twisted frames, side pole impacts, and other nightmare scenarios. Engineers couldn't cheat it with stronger bumpers anymore. They had to redesign whole structures. The results were brutal for automakers who cut corners. A bad NCAP score could sink sales overnight. By 1980, barely 5% of the cars could reach a 5-star crash rating. By the 2010s, a majority of vehicles were hitting that mark. Not because cars magically evolved overnight, but because NCAP kept raising the bar, changing requirements and test methods, and forcing automakers to keep up or get left behind. Let's get one thing straight. Every major safety leap in cars started with blood on the asphalt. The bodies piled up, the lawsuits mounted, and engineers finally said, enough. Out of that came the tech that defines modern driving. Seatbelts were the first lifeline. In 1959, Volvo engineer Niels Bohlin dropped the mic with a 3-point seatbelt. Bohlin's design was different. It secured the chest and pelvis in one sweep, simple enough for anyone to use. And by 1968, the U.S. had made belts standard. Then came crumple zones. Mercedes had the idea in 1952. What if the car absorbed the hit instead of the people inside? By 1959, the Mercedes W111 debuted with the world's first crumple zones. Instead of rigid steel smashing straight into your body, the car's structure folded in designated areas, absorbing and dispersing energy, slashing peak crash forces by 50%. In the 1950s and 60s, steering wheels were literally spears aimed at your chest. A head-on collision of the column rammed straight through you. 1967, General Motors rolled out the first collapsible steering column designed to telescope under impact. Now, the idea of airbags was patented in the 1950s, but it took decades of tinkering. General Motors was the first to put them in production cars, starting with the 1973 Oldsmobile Toronado. And by 1998, the U.S. mandated dual airbags for everyone. Combined with belts, airbags became the ultimate tag team. Instead of smashing into glass, metal, or the wheel, you had a cushion of controlled explosion. The 1970s and 80s weren't just about surviving crashes, they were about avoiding them. ABS changed the game first. Bosch nailed it in 1978, and by the 2000s, you couldn't buy a new car without it. Suddenly, panic stops on wet roads weren't guaranteed to be wipeouts. ABS stopped the tires from locking and let you steer while braking, shaving 10 to 20% off stopping distances. Then came the electronic stability program. Mercedes and Bosch dropped it in 1995, and it was like giving cars a sixth sense. The system could break individual wheels to keep the car pointed straight when physics tried to spin you sideways. Real-world data showed it wasn't just fancy tech, it actually cut single-vehicle crashes by 20 to 40%. Fast forward into the 2000s and beyond, and things went next level with the advanced driver assistance systems, stopping a car crash from ever happening. For the first time, cars were driving smarter than their drivers, stepping in when humans zoned out, got sloppy, or flat out made mistakes. Let's compare modern car safety with old car safety. Imagine a 1959 Chevy Bel Air squares off against a 2009 Chevy Malibu in a head-on crash. You'd think the Bel Air, all heavy steel and size, would bulldoze through, right? The Malibu's cabin stays intact. Airbags deploy, the dummy survives, and the Bel Air crumbles like a soda can. Dashboard and steering wheel sparing the dummy. Today's cars are designed like fortresses with weak knees. High-strength steel and rigid safety cells keep the passenger space solid, while advanced crumple zones fold around it to absorb energy. Compared to 1950s cars, modern occupant compartment intrusion is cut by about 60%. That means instead of the dashboard eating you alive, the car sacrifices itself in a controlled collapse. A 2020 IIHS study found that modern cars cut the risk of dying in a crash by 70% compared to 1980s models. Stack that against the 1950s and the gap is even bigger. Back then, a head-on collision at 48 kilometers per hour could be fatal. Today, people walk away from 48 kilometers per hour crashes with bruises. If you still think they don't make them like they used to, you're right. They make them infinitely better. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and I will see you in the next video.